Alex Proctor, the Antelope Island Buffalo Run 50-mile champion,
Got a
course
mouthful.
record holder of 14 years. The curse has been broken. The drought has been undroughted. First of all, congratulations. What a massive accomplishment. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good, man. Yeah, I'm feeling really good. Still riding the high from last Friday. It's Wednesday now that we're recording, so it's been a few days to let it soak in and put out a few good pieces of content that I don't know really like show people and tell people about the story. It's not every day that you race. It's not every day that you win a race. It's not every day that you set a course record. Um, but I think it's every day that you are loved by Christ and that you can have faith in His plan. And that's something I took really to heart during that race and something that was a big reason why I was able to finish in the way I did. Um, for example, I mean, I was cramping in the 6 hours and 9 minutes it took me, the last 3.5 hours, so like 3 hours and about 30 minutes. Um, every, I'd say, 0.05 mile, which is like not even a minute of time, I would cramp up and my legs would seize, and water wouldn't fix it, salt wouldn't fix it, electrolytes wouldn't fix it, carbs wouldn't fix it. Um, but I prayed hard to God about it and just basically told him like I want like this so bad. Like, can you please help bless me in this moment, and I will promise to bless others. And the fruits of my labor will benefit others in so many different ways. Um, and so I vowed to give half the prize money to um, our church's youth mission trip this summer, and something I wanted to promise. And um, I knew I was in the running for some money and reward from the race, and I knew I just kind of had to hang on and ride that line. It was the craziest experience in that I was riding this red line where I was on the verge of bonking for I'd say at least 4 to 5 hours, and it was just uncomfortable. It almost felt like a marathon on steroids, where you're just riding that line of bonking and you kind of just have to push through no matter what. And I'd never found that limit before, and honestly, that was the goal of this race going in. I my intentions and like in stuff I'd post, like I came in with the intention of wanting to win and wanting to blow up intentionally and seeing what would happen, because I never went in with the mindset, and this kind of answers one of the questions um, that someone had on my Instagram story that we'll get into in a bit later, but I can expand on. But I had never gone into a race before, um, outside of like my fifth grade 800-meter district track meet, with the intention of winning from the gun and holding on no matter what happened. And it's a whole different race when you put yourself in that position. It's absurdly different from being like in second, third, um, anywhere else in the field, when you are the one that is controlling the race and you're the one that is putting like the pressure on. Um, and it's something that I want to not only feel like again, I want it to feel every single time.
Mm.
Um, and it's something that's addicting because you are going to get the most out of yourself when you do that. You're taking risks. You are like, I'm still like staying within myself, but to the point where it's the most I can be within myself. So it's
Yeah.
a pretty unique circumstance, and I think all the good things kind of aligned on that day to for me to have the best day. So it was just really cool from the gun.
Yeah, so we'll get into some questions you put up on your story toward the end of the episode. I do want to talk about the course record and when you felt like you secured the win. But before we get into that, I just want to touch on something you just said of how this was the first race we talked about in the last episode, of how you were going into it with the intention of redlining, blow up. You're going to give it everything you had because
Yeah.
this was just an opportunity for you to do that.
Yeah.
Um, what challenges outside of, the obvious of hydration or cramping, were there any other unexpected challenges during the race, or even more specifically, how did you mentally overcome the obstacle of pushing yourself consistently in a way that you never had before? What were some of the mental games, notes, thoughts, conversations you were having with yourself during that time, as this was like a totally new experience for you?
Yeah, great question. Thanks, ChatGPT. No, I'm kidding. Got him. No, I think the big first challenge uh, showed itself around mile 15 and a half. The first 22 or so miles start out pretty flat and rolling, and you can kind of get a quick pace going and establish yourself in the field. And I had led from the gun up until mile 15 and a half, and it was an interesting feeling because no one was really pushing me. Like everyone was kind of just going based on my pace and like
Mm,
taking my taking my pace as like the one that they should be running, which is interesting to do. But at around mile 15 and a half, that all changed when my good friend Sam Collins, who I knew was going to be a threat in this race and someone I had trained with before, someone I'm pretty familiar with, he went on a huge surge ahead of me. And luckily enough, I was prepared for this, and it was something that I had thought about beforehand. And I think it's something that you have to be conscious about beforehand if you
mm,
are going to match a move like this. I had asked my coach Hayden Hawks a few days prior on a phone call just about race strategy and such, and he went back to some of the races that he made some moves and didn't make some moves, and he said that in most races, if you're going for the win, like you have to match surges to an extent, otherwise you might lose.
mm.
That tension might be broken, and that
Yep.
gap might persist the entire time, where it's almost um, you can't come back from it. So
Right.
um, Sam went off, and he probably put it like in a matter of a few miles. He probably put on like a minute and a half to 2 minute gap on me, which is pretty substantial. Like he pushed the pace a lot, so I had to ramp back up, and he ended up holding it for the next that lead for about the next, let's say, 18 or so miles, 17 miles. And I never really felt uncomfortable with him leading. It was kind of nice at that point to like chase and have someone to like press behind, but it was uncomfortable because it wasn't the effort that I was initially like locked into. It was
Yeah.
something where I had to rise to it. So it was a nice factor to like, I don't know, challenge myself even more to match Sam's effort. And then at around like mile 19, um, I had to go pee, and I ended up just not wanting to stop and letting him like snap the tension between us. So I just peed myself for the first time like ever during a run, and just like let that warm energy like soak around, and like my feet were all wet, and afterward my thighs just smelled like urine. But um, I don't know, challenging myself, like challenging my innards to like be able to do that was interesting, because at first I'd like tried like mile like 18, and it wasn't like my like I don't know, it wasn't working. Like it was like why are you trying to do this without stopping, and why
Yeah.
are your pants still on? So that was a funny challenge. I had to like just run through my pee. But I want people to know like those are some of the things that to expect. Like if you're gonna go for the win, like you have to be willing to do whatever it takes, especially if the competition is high
Mm,
and they're not letting up, and they're like giving you all that they have and showing you that respect and that sportsmanship. So like it's gonna bring you up to that occasion. Um, I'd say like thoughts that were going through my head when I was like cramping and just going through it, where I didn't think I'd be able to make it, where I was, the intrusive thoughts of dropping out were going through my head of like, am I even gonna make it to the next aid station? I would just honestly, it's like the most like corny thing to say, but I would just think about my next step. Like,
mm.
there's nothing else that could like help me. Like I was praying, I was just talking to God about it. I was like, I'm just taking one more step here, God. Like, just please keep helping me out here. I know I'm like seizing up and cramping, but like I trust you, and I know that we'll just keep going. Like even if my leg is like bowed and like I have to like run with one leg up this hill, like I'm still going forward, and we're gonna keep moving forward and persisting. And honestly, the biggest thing for me was um, picturing Jesus on the cross, and
Mm,
what he had to endure and suffer, and thinking to myself, if he's able to do that by his own choice, basically like sacrifice himself, like I should be able to sacrifice myself and like my body for this effort, and all the people that have supported me in this, and people out there that need to see me succeed in this moment. Like they need that to see me succeed, so maybe they'll have some more belief in themselves. And then and hopefully I'm able to reflect God's image in that moment and in my actions and what I say and how I like speak about it. So that was a
Yeah,
big thing that kind of pushed me through.
Sally McRae had a great line that actually sparked my curiosity about faith again on the Keep Hammering Collective years ago, where she talked about how in the toughest moments of races, she reminds herself that she's made in the image of the creator of all things, and
Mm-hmm.
she can tap into that power. And it sounds like you were tapping into that power in very similar ways, praying and making a promise to God that you would give a portion of the proceeds over to your youth church, which, if I'm not mistaken, the Bible um, tells us to be very careful about making promises to God because we're human and
Yeah.
we are faulty.
Yes, and I've made plenty,
How?
and I've made plenty before that I haven't kept up. So I'm not gonna
Yeah,
say that like every promise I've told God, but like in this moment, I felt like I would be cursed to hell
yeah,
if I didn't. Like for some reason, like because I needed, I just felt in that moment like I needed Him most, and I needed to be closest to Him most, and it really brought me as close as possible to Him. So it almost just like drew it out of me in a
yeah,
way. Like it was pretty random, and it was like the first thing I had in my head, and I don't think there's really much more to it. I think it's just like what came to my head, and like boom, like that's like what it was. Like that'll push me to the finish and help me like persevere through this and just take no prisoners and not compromise for anything that my competitors are doing, anything that I can control, because at this point it's out of my control. Like God is like willing me to this finish line.
yeah. Well, it's a good reminder that through our suffering, it's easier or more fruitful for us just to surrender to the
Mm,
outside support that we have.
yeah,
And you not only had that with God, but you had that with Zach and Natalie. So can you talk a little bit about the role that they played and the
definitely.
importance of that and how they were a tremendous help in securing this victory for you?
Yeah, if I was out there alone, drop bags, or with crew members that I wasn't like the best of friends with, this wouldn't have happened. I don't think I would have even finished in the top three with how well the other runners were running. So just being familiar with my crew and knowing kind of what they like were sacrificing to be there and to get me to this point, not just only on that day, but in all the days beforehand. Like Natalie sacrificing so much for me to be here and like I don't know, carrying a lot of the weight financially, really like made it so that I had really no pressure because I knew who I was doing it for, and I knew that like she's putting in work for me to do this now, like I'm going to return the favor in a way and like show her like that all the work is
Mm,
worth it, and that
yep.
we are we are progressing, and that we're playing the long game, and like we're doing all the things to ensure that like this is the right way to go. And Zach, man, like he was the best pacer I've ever had. Just no offense to anyone else that's paced me, but I think that him being so involved with like trail running and just like the nature of trail running really helped a
Yeah.
lot. Um, I've formerly been paced by my buddy John, who I love to death, and I want him to pace me and crew me in the future. Like I love that man so much, but he is just not as familiar with the trail running community. He hasn't put in the reps on the trails and like done that type of stuff. So he just I guess is a little separated from it,
Yeah.
which like no offense to him at all. Like he's done great for me, but Zach in a way just kind of I don't know. We felt like we were so synced because we were just flowing in the trails like we had before, and
Mm,
we'd run before in the trails, and he knew that like he knew what he liked when someone else was pacing him, or when he was pacing someone else. Like he had gotten feedback, so he kind of knew when to do certain things. Like if he needed to hype me up, which I don't need him to do, and she kind of realized like I don't really need to say much. I just need to run with him and be there
Yeah.
for him.
Yes.
And
Yep.
like I'll respond to what he says. And like we were out there just like praising the Lord together, and just like it was just awesome that, you know, he was hyping up every runner we passed and encouraging them, and that like that positivity like just kind of pushed me forward. And like everyone in Utah that's a trail runner knows Zach. So like
Yeah.
everyone's like he's like a paparazzi, like a celebrity out there, which is hilarious. So it was like cool to see like my friend like getting like some of the greetings from other people. And at a certain point, like I think it became a little bit too much to me just because of like the mental hole I was in, and I didn't have to say anything, and he almost realized that, and it was like, oh, do you want me to like not be as loud, or like to say to every single person like good job, you're doing great. And I was like, yeah, can I just like lock in for like a few miles here and like we can just flow? And he was like, okay, that's fine. Like, and we did that. And I don't know, it felt like he was anticipating all my needs really
Mm.
well without me even prepping him that much at all on it. It was just like we were just brothers in arms out there, and our fellowship was just so strong that I knew that if he was going to be hanging on with me through all this, which he hasn't really been preparing to do that much running at that pace for that long. And he ended up not even like he took like half a water bottle. He ended up drinking half a water bottle of what he had, and then no fuel the entire time, just because he had never practiced that before. He had never
Yeah.
like gone to those like places where he needed to do that, and he was just nervous that like if he stopped to like eat something that he would be dropped.
Yep.
And he just hung on through everything and just like suffered through it for my cause and just being there for me and being able to witness that. So I just think it was like he put himself down for the cause and like wanted to be on the winning side and like to see me see this through. And I just couldn't have done it without him. And man, it was just so incredible. It was
Yeah.
just yeah,
The,
it was
well,
cool.
just on that point, you talk about, no offense to the other people. I think John was
Yeah.
the other. It's There is such a mental warfare that is going on in the mind of someone who's going that extreme in an
Yes.
event that much, that the trust and the someone who's been in those shoes many times before,
Yeah.
like Zach, he understands that, where there's no emotion, there's no offense, there's nothing being taken
Mm-hmm.
from you saying, like, even if you
Yeah.
were to be like, dude, shut up, like, he wouldn't take that personal, because he knows that there's no room for emotion when it comes to pacing a friend in a moment like that. It is
Yeah.
just like anticipating needs and what can the pacer do to best support the runner.
Exactly. There's
And
absolutely none taken at all.
yes.
Yes. Like you
And
know at
and
that point, like it gets to a certain rawness that like it boils you down to like the most like real and like blunt you can be, because you don't have
you don't have
time
time. You
or
don't have
energy,
energy. Yes.
yes, to say anything more than exactly what you want like your pacer to know.
Yeah. And you also had Natalie out there. How were the the aid station handoffs? I know you guys were practicing that the night before,
Yes.
and
Yeah, that's a great
so
question. And
how
I
did
think
those go?
that might have made the difference between first and second place, if I'm going to be honest with you.
Really?
That time gap
Do you know how
was
much time you spent at each aid station?
it was at most 20 seconds at
Okay.
most, and that was the long one where we had to swap all bottles, pour water on my head like while I was standing still. The other ones I basically ran through, grabbed the bottles, and transitioned.
Mm.
Um, and my competitors, excuse me, were like walking through the aid stations and filling up their bottles with the aid station supplies themselves and not having like their own extra stuff, which I think helped me in a huge way. And that gap continued to open up more just because I could transition faster through there and just keep running. I also think it would have hurt me a lot more to have to stop, because it was so hard at that point to get my legs moving after like going slower. So I knew that if I
Yeah.
stopped completely outright, that almost chalked me at mile 28. So I knew that
Yep.
any point after that, like I can't stop. Like I just need to run through here. So Natalie was super good at being fast there. We did have one little mistake. It wasn't necessarily all her fault, but at mile 28, I had dropped all my empty bottles and took into the last three. And then she had to like, I had like a 5.5 mile section to the next aid station, and she had to hike or run in 3 miles to meet me there for like
Oh
the next
wow.
three spots. So like you'd see her three times at that aid station that she had to hike into 3 miles. She ended up running because she would have missed me. But in that moment, she was just so focused on getting there in time that she missed like picking up my bottles. So
Mm,
we just had to refill what I had in my hands,
got it.
which ended up hurting me in a way just because at one point I wasn't able to get the salt I needed to because she had mixed it and then poured it in and the salt was still at the bottom.
Yeah.
So that hurt a little bit. But like we were able to like fix that on the fly and just adapt to it. And I soon realized that she's like, oh, I hope he doesn't like realize that. I think she said that to like herself. But like I soon realized that I was like, okay, I don't want to stress her out at all. Like she's doing this for me. Like it's not that big of a deal. I know that like we'll be fine. It's only saving like 5 to 10 seconds, which
Right.
I can make up with my legs, like if I need to, like God
Yeah.
willing. So yeah, there's a few that we could have like I think sped up a little bit if we had the bottles to swap, but other than that, man, it was just impeccable. I think the race plan that I drew out for her and like the splits were like almost spot on within a few minutes, so she knew when I'd be coming through, what to expect, what I needed, what Zach needed to have ready for me, like water to be poured in my head. And, like I had all those notes for all of them broken down by aid station, so they knew exactly what they were doing in their role. I think I'm going to do that in the future. It also helped that I had gotten out on the course 8 times and about 20 hours of cumulative time between Black Canyon and this race. And that familiarity with the course gave me the utmost confidence that I was going to be able to pull off the splits I did. And it helped me to draw out the plan that I did because I knew the efforts that
Mm,
were required on certain sections of
yep.
climbs, downhills. And in the future, it's really helpful for your crew to know exactly where the aid stations are, where to drive. So we did that by getting out to the island and running. But say the day before the race, if the aid stations are close enough to where you're staying, like familiarizing your crew with the certain aid station stops where they can park, just so it gives them a little bit more confidence and take a little bit more stress off of them.
Yeah.
Because then they're less frantic. They're helping you out a little bit more smoothly. They don't have to worry about the transportation. They know where they're going, and that's a factor. It's a non-factor at that
Mm.
point. So I think those are some big deals that in the future, if I'm able to with local races, I'm gonna make sure I get on the course and run it, um, every part of it at least one time together, like not in one session, but like like parts at least where I have stepped foot on every single part of the course.
And so this was your first hometown, basically home field advantage, I guess you could say. A first Utah race,
Yep.
successful at, victory at. Was there a moment during the race where you felt that you had secured the victory? And
Mm.
what was going through your mind when you felt that coming on, and then you maybe did you think like, oh, like I could get the course record too? What were some
Yeah.
of the thoughts going through your mind there?
That's a good question. I'll start with like the course record and the splits, and I had written down splits for just about every aid station, and where I wanted to be like a few minutes uh, earlier than the course record. I didn't have Dylan splits to go off of just because it was before GPS and Strava that he had adopted. So I kind of estimated times based on like an inevitable positive split in the second half, just because with the way our course was set up, it was the harder half last, and the first half was the easiest. His
Mm,
was reversed, and that's how the race had been for like the last 18 years. I think the last two iterations they flipped it where the harder half was second, which I think inevitably makes you run slower. But I guess I was on splits. I had like at mile like 11.7 at like the end of the first out and back. We were ahead by like 5 minutes on the splits I put, which were pretty generous. So I was like, oh, if we're 5 minutes ahead and this felt pretty easy, like we're good. We'll see at mile 25 what we'll be at the halfway point,
yeah.
and I wanted to be at around 3 hours so that I could allocate like another 3 hours and 12 minutes for the last half. A positive split in there to
Yep.
run a little bit slower just because there's more elevation. And we were through 25 at like 252. I think
Mm,
Sam was like 250. So I was like, oh, we're 8 minutes ahead now. Like we're cooking. Like, and we're still feeling good. Like I think it's gonna be in the cards for someone on this day.
yes.
Like
Yep.
someone is gonna get this. And I didn't know how close Finn was behind at that time, but he was pretty close behind me as well, like maybe a few minutes back from me. He had made up some ground. So we got into mile, I think, 33, 34. We had lost a little bit of time, but we were still ahead by a few minutes of like my generous splits of still breaking the course record. So I was like, okay, like we just need to hold on here, stay calm, like do everything we need to do, take care of ourselves. Um, and then I think around like one of like the last long descents, I think it was around, let's say, mile like 44-ish, where you're rolling down the backside of this white rock loop, and you're going downhill for like 3.5, 4 miles maybe, somewhere in there. I was like, Finn's behind me quite a ways. I'm most confident in myself on downhills than like I think anyone in this race. I think I could beat anyone on a downhill, even though Finn is just an incredible downhill runner. Like objectively, like he's put up some insane times around the Salt Lake City area that like he holds the segment record on for a ton around here. So I knew that he was strong there too. But I knew that if I kept pushing that, like I would be good to go and I would have the course record and the win around like mile 44, 43. I start sending it, and all of a sudden, like the first time I had started to get a cramp on a downhill was right there, and I was like,
Mm.
dude, like, Lord, I cannot choke right here. Like this is I can't walk in a downhill. Like this is not the way I want to go out. Then I just stayed calm. I peeled back a little bit just to make sure that I was staying a little bit more within myself, and it was like another reminder just to slow down a little bit, take my fuel in, do whatever I needed to do. And then we get down that hill. I enter in like the last aid station. There's a clip of that around. I think we just hit mile like 47, and there was like 3 miles to go. I turned to my right, and Finn's still coming down that hill, and I knew like I gotta just put on the gas here and look strong to his crew and Zach, who was filming me, because I know that he's gonna be like talking to Finn later, like
Yeah.
and show no weakness at all
Yep.
to anybody, and just like look strong and make a surge in front of them. And then from there, I think I really knew when Zach said we have 2 miles to go, and we were cresting the top of the hill, and it was just one downhill and a tiny uphill, and I just sent it down there, dropped Zach in the process, and finished as hard as I could, and it was just like the most incredible moment. Like the people that are in the 50K race were like just finishing, and like I was running by them, and they were like giving me pats on the back, and like it was just cool that people were like the camaraderie at that race, and just like people, I don't know, didn't realize exactly what was happening, but they knew that like the effort I was putting in by how hard I was breathing and like how hard I was pushing even at that point in the race, and like I don't know, never really taken the gas off. So yeah, I think I thought I had known at mile 44, 43. I got the cramp and I was like, oh shoot, like it's okay, like I gotta keep sending it. I was confident. Zach turned around. He's like, "Oh, I think you've put the nail in the coffin." I was like, "Okay, maybe I have, but like, let's just stay calm." And then mile 47, I turn. I'm like, 3 miles to go. It's a 5K. I'm ahead of splits by I think a minute of where I wanted to be here to secure a 6:12 finish time. I ended up finishing in 6:09:45. So I ended up putting a gap on those splits, plus being early there. So yeah, Finn had made a comment to my latest Instagram post, um, basically saying like he was pushing as hard as he could, and in the last 5K, I still put 2 minutes on him in 3 miles.
Mm.
So I opened up the gap even more just because I knew like what it would take. And
Yeah.
this goes back to a training day actually that I had with Sam and Zach and our friend Josh on the island like about a month and a half ago, maybe a month ago. We had gone out as my like first big long run on the island with the guys, and we had done 28 miles, and like the last, or I had done 28 miles. Sam had done like 36 total, and in like the last 2 miles, Sam and I did that section, and he dropped the hammer on me and kind of like just sent it, and I was like, oh shoot, like if I get to this point, I know what I have to do based on what Sam's doing right now, and I know that if I put that surge on someone else and someone else sees me doing that late in the race, like that
It's
will
over.
kill all hope. Like,
Yeah.
that will just suck the life out of them. So that kind of like Sam showed me like what effort I needed to put in on that run, and it was crazy because after that run we had gotten much slower for 28 miles than the race pace, and I was huffing air trying to chase Sam down in that climb. And I think I ended up doing that climb during the race faster than Sam had on that day, even with more fatigue and just pressing forward, just because like I knew I guess the circumstances of the situation. I knew like this is like my last uphill, and I gotta make it hurt hard, not only for me but my competitors because they're
Yeah.
pushing behind me still. Like they're still not letting up.
So crossing that finish line, what was going through your mind there? How was?
It was funny because like it's such a grassroots race and like the most grassroots race I'd ever run before. So like
Hmm.
I don't even know if people truly knew I was like finishing the 50 miler because there's like other races. There's like the 25K people coming in, the 50K people coming in, and like um, it was pretty. I think it was pretty late in those races too. So like I come flying by, and there's like people like trotting in, and I'm just like huffing and like gasping for air, and there's like people sitting around like eating buffalo stew, and it was funny. It was a little bit more anticlimactic than I envisioned it. Like I
Yeah.
envisioned like breaking a tape and like just like this whole like scene. But honestly, I got to the end. I was at 49.96. I stopped my watch. I looked down at it. I'm like, oh, should I just go to 50? So I ran like into the ditch and hit 50 miles to make sure that I'm getting credit for 50 miles in this
Yeah.
damn race. Even though it's advertised exactly, I think, as what my watch had, like it's a less than a 50 miler by like a negligible amount. I was like, I'm getting credit for this. So I ran to the ditch, and then like the only people that like greeted me after were like the race director and the race director of the Bear 100 too.
Mm.
So I think it was really cool that it was the race director's last year running the race. It was the 20th anniversary, and he's retiring from running this race going forward. He had put together such a good event. And then I talked to Finn after the race, and Finn's like, "Nice job! Like, man, that was incredible. This will be my last time running the race." And I was like, "Oh, why?" He's like, "Oh, because we just bought it." Um,
Mm.
so Finn and his like event arm of his single track company, Massif Running, who owns Twisted Fork, which I'm running in June. I think they just purchased the Antelope Island um, Buffalo Run events, so they'll own that and take over that next year. That's news. I don't think it's been necessarily broken yet, but I mean he told me so. Um, it was cool that Andrew Storer was out there basically documenting the entire thing of like I think mostly the 50-mile race, but some parts of the 50K race and the other races too, just to put together a video. I think either at the end of this year or early next year um, to show that he had
Announce the.
announced, yeah, that Finn has bought it and that like show like what the race is about. So it's cool that we had like a battle of all battles
Yeah. Yeah.
out on that island that day. And Andrew was out there like on his e-bike with a huge like setup and um, his like drone at certain points, and it was cool to see him out there because I never met him in person. He's such a cool guy. Really nice that also Zach Garner was out there, who's a runner for Norda. He's another guy that's around my age, 24, 25, and he's an elite runner. He's got like the Bear 100 course record by a substantial amount. He won the race last year, I think in 6:33. So it was cool to have him out there and like videoing and recording it and being there supporting us out there. Um, and then Mike McMonigal, who took the photographs of me early on in the race before he ended up pacing Finn. Really cool to have him out there and to document as well because people wouldn't been able to see those perspectives without those guys out there.
Yeah.
So it's like interesting because like this kind of goes back to something that we had talked about on a unreleased podcast clip about the Barkley marathons and how like there is a time and place I think for documentation and a bigger stage, but we won't get into that entirely now. But I think that this race is very capable of hosting a pretty sick live stream just with like logistically it's pretty easy to follow and it wouldn't be too hard for like follow cams like the paths in most cases are wide enough where you could catch a good amount of the race like following someone with like a runner with a camera or like an e-bike and it not totally destroy the race itself. I think it's pretty wide open to capture. So I'm not sure what else there is to speak on at the finish line. I think I think the the cool part. I'll turn into like a little show and tell section here. Like we get like a a mug, and you get your choice between like a bison stew or like a veggie stew, and and this is such a grassroots race that you have to bring a can from Walmart of like veggies to put in the stew, like as like part of your race entry. So then you get like this mug at the end, and they put it in like a cup I haven't washed yet because I've just been not that on my chores after the race. But um, you get a cool finisher mug, along with um, this was like a T-shirt that everyone gets, which is pretty sick. Just a nice like 20th anniversary Buffalo Run T-shirt. So
Nice.
that's sick. And then I think the cool thing is that like the thing that I think brought out a lot of the competition this year was the allure of it being a bear tag, which is, I'm not gonna say like a Walmart golden ticket, but I think it's more rewarding for me than a Western States golden ticket, just because I think the course for the Bear 100 is more motivating for me than the course at Western States, and it's,
Mm.
I think, more beautiful in my opinion from the images that I've seen. I haven't gone to either one, but just it being a little bit more mountainous, close to home. Now, like getting like this bear tag and a comped entry into Western States. If you win a golden ticket for Western States, you don't even get a comped entry for it. Like you have to pay the 450 or $500. So
Really?
this is a free entry into the race, which is sick, and I already registered for it. And then I think the coolest thing of it all was this trophy, like this, like the bison trophy, and like almost feeling like you conquered the island because
Yeah.
like these guys, there's like 700 of these guys on the island, so I think this was pretty sick, and like I don't know, one of those things that I don't know makes the race a little bit more special. Is something that I was like really shooting for. Um, I don't know, it's a cool piece. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, all those little trinkets and the 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 bear, which is at the end of September, the
yep,
26th and 27th. Um, a lot of like external things coming together to reward you for this victory, and I think
yeah,
it's phenomenal. But there's also a lot of like internal stuff that I want to touch on because I know Caius and I were hitting a 30-mile day or 29-mile day out on the Afton trails. We gave you a call. We were
yeah.
absolutely fired up. Like
Let's
it
go.
was so it was just awesome to be able to hear you and get you in like you guys were just headed into a restaurant, but you were in
Yeah,
that celebratory mood. And after we got on the phone, Kais and I just spent the next several miles talking about you, how inspiring you are, and
thanks, man.
how you're doing the work
Yep,
and making it happen. And so I wanted to touch a little bit and have you talk about that of like this is something you set out to do a few years ago and you've
yep,
had this idea about what you could accomplish. And yes, this is most certainly not the end of it. There are far more, far greater endeavors for you to go out and tackle. But in this moment, you have accomplished something that is substantial and impactful and meaningful. And I just want you to kind of talk about what that means for you in this moment. Have you given yourself the opportunity to like really recognize how far you've come and what this means for you in this moment?
yeah. It's an interesting like concept to think about because I feel like it's easy to forget where you've come from and to just think about where you are in the moment and where you are now. But I think when I was proposing the idea of becoming a professional ultra runner a few years ago, after I'd done like my first two marathons, like I didn't really know what undertaking I was getting myself into. I just knew that I was being called to do it, and I didn't know how hard it was going to be. I didn't know how easy it was going to be, but I knew that like I wanted to put in the work on a daily basis to get to that point no matter how long it took. I was going to be committed to this thing because I felt like I had committed myself to many different things in my life, people, friends, sports that just I ended up falling short of my obligations and my responsibilities to show up to them to the best of my ability each and every day. And in this particular case, with like, and this is another thing, like Natalie too, obviously, like I'm gonna show up for it, but like this is something that I wanted to almost make my life's work, and that like I wanted to be happy with the effort I put in, and to show people that I can come from a background that doesn't necessarily, you wouldn't necessarily think that it would result in this outcome, but that you can do it through all the work. And I think there's something to be said about having like the innocence and not knowing. Now that I'm a few years in, like I'm starting to figure out like how much this is going to take, and
Yeah.
how much sacrifice I'm going to have to put into this to continue to build off of everything, because it's almost like you make a lot of gains in the first few years of running, and I think I'm still making those gains, but you're not rewarded as fast, and I think there's a little bit less dopamine hit from
Mm-hmm.
the daily grind as you get further into it. But that is what separates the greats from those that are age groupers, or people that are
Yeah.
just out there running for fun. Um, because I will be honest, like on a daily basis, like doing all the work isn't necessarily the most fun, but I get the most enjoyment out of it because I know that it's building to something bigger than myself.
Yep.
And um, it's very meaningful to know that you have to sacrifice a lot of things, and you have to do a lot of things that other people aren't willing to do to accomplish this. And I've never really wanted to be like anyone else. And I think that something like this kind of helps me to better, I don't know, feel like I'm unique in a way, and that I can share a unique perspective, and that it might open people's eyes to what they're capable of. Um, because it's easy to lay up, I think, in life, and to be comfortable and to take that job offer that that will set you up to financially provide, and just that, and to not be happy, and to not be able to give the energy that your family requires of you. Um, but I think taking the unorthodox path um, will make this life on earth a lot more meaningful and fulfilling, um, to me. And I know that this isn't like my final resting place. I know that there's another place for me, but while I'm here, I might as well um, suffer hard and endure as much as I can, um, just to know like I did what I set out to do, and um, it didn't matter the cost. Like I'm gonna give myself up for it. So yeah, I've definitely come a long way since I started, and I don't think I really thought too deep about it when I started, but nowadays like I do think about it a lot, and I'm a lot more intentional about my actions, and what's going to take away from these goals and what's not, and balancing that as best as I can, um, so that I am putting myself in the giving myself the best chance of a favorable outcome. And it's not always going to work out, but I think failing and learning from it, which is the most cliche thing to say, has helped out the most. Like my first 100K, I blew up, had to walk it in 15 miles. I wouldn't have gotten third place at the Grindstone 100 miler if I
Mm.
didn't know that. Black Canyon 100K, I got 25th, and I didn't go out as hard as I needed to go, and I wasn't competitive early enough. I learned from that, took it to Buffalo Run, and ended up winning because I knew that if that was
Mm-hmm.
my first race of the season, I wouldn't have won. So I think building off of your learnings is really important, and you have to have certain mindsets going into things. Otherwise, you're not going to give yourself a chance, and you have to be very intentional, because other people are doing the same things that you're doing, whether you like it or not. So I guess just balancing what you can and trying to come out on the other side. Um, yeah, positively.
Biblically speaking, we're called to grow in abundance the talents that we're given. And you clearly have a talent in this domain. And I have full confidence that if your legs get taken away from you tomorrow, you'll find another outlet for the self-expression that is inside of you to come out. And I think what I'm really appreciating about like this victory is how you are pouring more into that, more into like revealing who Alex Proctor is, not just as the runner, as a competitor, but also as the person. And you just talked about it there. It's like growing and watering the plants and growing those talents don't just come from, you know, am I happy doing this thing? Is this a worthy process? Like running is such a thing. Like most, I would say, I would go out on a limb and say everything that is worthy eventually gets to a point where it's not fun in the day to day, but it builds for something greater. It builds for that moment you get to cross the finish line and be surrounded with Natalie and Zach and people that care about you and get phone call and have a phone call with your mom immediately after. Like it's built for those moments for people to be able to share in that goodness. And it also comes with you being okay with putting yourself in positions where you will fail, where the possibility of you failing is inevitable, like with the Black Canyon. Not that that was a failure, but it was, in your eyes, not where you want to be in the end, right? And so all these other things where it's like going out and doing and really pursuing your path is going to come with a lot of long, monotonous work that sucks, and also a lot of moments of failure where if you can just use those in the right way, you will get these moments like this. And that's what's ultimately like so cool about this race and how it came to fruition is like it's just a sneak peek. And I know the reason I was so stoked on my at work today, just thinking about having this conversation because it to me it's special that we have this podcast where like you don't have to wait to be invited on someone else's podcast. Like we can have this conversation and have it be just a timestamp and we can go back to it. And I know you would never put yourself here, so I'm not even gonna, you're welcome to respond to this, but I was thinking about this today of how like I do believe in your ability to be in the ranks of the people that are talked about, like the Courtneys, like the Jims, like the Killian Jornets. Like no one else outside of like the people that really know you would think that or even dare to say that. But I believe that. And I know that because of the work, because of the mindset, because of everything I know about you. And like, it to me it feels special that we know this thing right now, and it's just we just have to keep putting in the work to make that happen in real life. And so I just want to I know we've more to talk about. We'll get to some questions after this from the Q&A you put up, but just want to so proud of you and congratulations once again. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to talk about the race or your reflection afterwards, but dude, I'm so stoked for you, and this is just one moment of many more to come, and it's an honor to be able to have this conversation with you.
Man, those words mean so much to me, man. It's nice to know that I have such like a good like support system and people that are there for me, and it just makes me even more hyped to be able to like return the favor for you and like be there for you at like events and stuff. But we need to get together for one of these events. Like I know that we're separated by miles and miles of mountains
I got
and
July
pastures.
26th on
Okay.
my calendar to be out there for Proctor.
Okay, okay. Because I feel like, man, like I want to be out there for you, like supporting you through all this stuff too. Because it's one thing to talk about it, but it's another just to like witness and
Yeah.
to serve your brother in a way that's irreplaceable and one of one. So like next year or like in the fall, if something lines up, like I really want to like be there. And I know I've said this to you. I'm not sure if on the last podcast or not, but like if you do end up signing up for the Cocodona, like I'll take out a big chunk of my like training and my year next year because I want to be there to support you in any way I can. Um, because I know how much like that would mean to you and like I know how big it would be. So um, I think like on your little note about like being like a Courtney or a Jim or a Killian, like it was probably dumb of me to think when I got into the sport, but my intention going into the sport was be one of the best, and I wouldn't want it any other way. I want to compete with all the people that are putting in just as much, if not more, work than me, that are faster than me, that are more competitive than me, and just kind of seeing where I line up with them, and then going back to the drawing board and seeing how I can compete with them better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's always been my intention to be one of the best in the world. And I said by the time when I started, I was 21 years old, almost 22. That was like almost 3 years ago now. I said that by the time I'm 27 and a half, around contract season, then I want to be a signed professional athlete. And I'm 24 now, so still got like 3.5 years on that goal. And then by the time I'm 33 and a half to 34, I want to be like the best in the world, if not like one of the best. So that's like those are the goals, like the big goals that I have. And I know like the big thing is like getting the most out of myself and finding my potential. And if that ends up not being the best in the world, that's okay. Like I know at least like I shot for it and I went for it when I was able to. But I'm gonna keep shooting for those goals, and I know they're more arbitrary than anything, but I think those are some of the big things that kind of I don't know make this a little bit easier to do. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, you're starting to do that already with Rabbit. Like, that's not a full on like not a sponsorship in the way that we probably traditionally think of sponsorships, but
yeah,
it
yeah.
is. I mean, it is in.
I'd say it's like the highest form of ambassadorship and something I'm very grateful for. They've been so supportive and the team's been great, and like from the CEO down to all the employees, like just have been so nice and supportive of these endeavors, and they're definitely a brand I want to keep working with going forward in the future. Like this year has been our first time working together, first few months, and um, they've just been alongside, lockstep, just every step of the way, and like supporting all the visions and stuff to the best that they can at this moment. I know it's like it's hard because they haven't seen that much from me, but it's nice to know that like they just saw this
Mm,
and it's a good sign that they're supporting someone that's pushing boundaries and that's pushing the envelope forward. So yeah,
yeah.
I really hope someone goes next year to that race and like resets my course record. Like I want to be there for that and like to watch that happen if I'm not defending it. Um, so I can go back and set it again because I think it's cool to see people like push for those things. I know that I drew a lot of motivation and research on the people that had come before me. Adrian McDonald, he had ran it like in 2021 with a time of like 6:22. Um, I'd read Debo's blog many times over. He hadn't had splits, but he had like, enough information that was valuable on there. Zach Garner's time from last year, Finn's time from last year, and I would just look over those splits and just like I don't know, research as much as I could on their experience. And it's nice to know that I might be able to provide some
Mm,
of that information to those after me and to set them up for success in a way that no one had really done before with all the details I'm giving them and like the playbook that I can have for them. All my training that led up to those races on Strava, like I'm gonna put out a blog on Substack about the entire experience, like what I did, what I was feeling. I'm still to release a YouTube video that describes more into detail, like some of the events, probably in less detail, probably a little bit more imagery, um, but like from like the crewing perspective and like aid station stops and stuff, um, and what to expect of like the aid stations even visually. So people are going to be prepared for this more than I was, and they're
Mm,
able to maybe put this thing under 6 hours, which I think will be pretty sick.
mind blowing.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, we got 5 questions here from uh, that we want to review. I
yep.
think the first one from your dad, we kind of touched on. Is there anything else you want to talk about? The question is, how did you get through the cramping, all mental and physically pushed it?
Yeah, I was pushing as hard as I physically could the entire time, and I think that's kind of what led to the cramping. I'd never done that effort for that extended period of time. Like I'd felt good through the marathon, and probably like I think I went through the marathon in like what was it like 3:02 or 3:03 the first marathon, and like that felt chill. But then following that, going up the first climb, I started to feel the cramping more, and it worried me a bit. But I just try to stay mentally composed and as calm and as in touch with my body as I possibly could, and didn't run away with my thoughts from it, but instead like put it at the forefront and like used God to help attack it. Um, and I think it was mostly like spiritually that I like the spiritually I used the most to push through. Mentally, it was nice knowing like Zach was there with me and I had a companion that was able to like be there and almost like have my back like in reality. But yeah, yeah.
And we got one from Vic. Where
Yep.
have you settled on your own body composition and how it helps performance?
Yep. And this question I think stems from a few stories I've had. I think fairly recently about being like a heavier runner that's trying to be elite. I'm historically around 175 to 180 pounds, which for an ultra runner is quite heavy comparably. I know that this might trigger some people's disorders and stuff, and so I'm sorry that if it does, but I think most like elite ultra runners are sub 150 pounds, and that's kind of heavy. So I think 140 is pretty much what people are. Killian's probably like 130. Um, so I was questioning whether or not, and it's something I've dealt with, I guess, since my baseball background and my weight training days, like if I'm too heavy of a runner. And now that I know what I'm capable of at this weight, I think if anything, it's helped me to be a little bit more durable and to have some like protective muscles around my bones and the structure of my body, my tendons. So I've settled at this point on like I'm okay at this body weight that I think is like 175 right now. But I just want to keep getting stronger. I don't necessarily need to get heavier or lighter, but I want to be stronger I want to pack a bigger punch and hit the weight room a little bit more so that maybe I'm less likely to cramp because my legs are more used to the force.
Mm,
So that's kind of like what I've settled on at this point. Um, and I think that it helps on downhills for sure, just
yeah.
because I have a little bit more momentum going downhill than people that are a little bit lighter. Uphills, I know that it's not going to help because you're working against gravity, you're a little bit heavier. Um, but I think I can make up the difference in the other sections of the race well enough, as long as like the race isn't like a vertical kilometer uphill for the entire thing at this point. But like I don't want to rule myself out or count myself out of anything. I think that's pretty easy to do and something natural for me to think about. But like I need to try for myself before I can assess whether or not
Right.
I can do some of these things. Because if you would have asked me like a year ago if I think I could run a 50 miler in 6:09 with 3,400 feet of elevation gain, I'd probably be like, probably not. But like we'll see. Now like I know I can do that and I can do it with the body I have. So yeah, great question, Vic. He's a
Great.
nutritionist for a lot of the elite pros in the ultra trail running
Mm.
space, so he knows what he's talking about when it comes to fueling and all the hydration needs and such, and fueling outside of running. So super cool guy.
This next question comes in from Kyle. Kyle wants to know what was the most random thought you had during the race, not
Oh,
running related.
okay. Well, this is kind of running related, but not. because I honestly I didn't really have too many thoughts going through my head during the race other than like God and Natalie and just running. So the one that I did have was like pooping, and since this race is so open and there's like no there's not really any like diffies on the course. Like I was wondering if I would care or not in that moment if I just needed to drop trow and just like absolutely blow up right in front of like many racers. And I think I came to the conclusion that if I needed to do it, which the feeling came on many times, and I kind of just had to fight it off. If I needed to do it, I would not have cared because
Yeah.
like I don't care if they like see me just going off out there on the trail. Like I knew that like I would do whatever it takes. So that was like a pretty random thought. Like I was just picturing the outcome of needing to do that. But other than that, honestly, I didn't really have any random thoughts. I was kind of just like I was that was like the most like locked in and like I'd ever felt. And I don't know if it was just like the mindset I had or like maybe like the caffeine I had early on kicking in with the ketones I tried for the second time ever. But I just felt like would I picture people that have I don't know that one focusing drug that they like feel when you're just like
Mm.
so dialed in on something that
Adderall.
maybe that's what it is. That's what I envision what people think like feel like when there's like you have one thing on your mind and that's it. And it felt like almost one of the first times where I didn't have like ADD or ADHD, whatever it is, where I
Mm.
just felt like I didn't have scatterbrain. Like I was just like it was this like the trail in front of me, boom, I'm running on it. That's it. Like I'm gonna go try to win, and that's it. Yeah. So, yep. Thanks for the question, Kyle.
What did you change between Black Canyon 100K and Buffalo? Training, mindset, gear, nutrition, etc. This comes from Adam.
Adam, my guy. Um, what did I change? So, I think I upped the intensity of my easy runs slightly, and this is a little bit more of a in the weeds answer, but I like to think that my zone two is anywhere from like 135, 140 ish to like 162 ish range. So I would push more of my easy runs up into like the high 150s to low 160s and just stay controlled there. It wasn't something that was going to affect my ability to recover and to complete workouts in a good effort. But I made sure that like I needed up the intensity, be a little bit more comfortable running around the pace that I would be racing at for 50 miles so that it would feel a little bit easier then and pushing maybe a little bit faster than that pace on more occasions on easy days than I had before. But I would still keep it easy. I like to reiterate that it would still felt like I was like smooth and I wouldn't push past like say like 165 heart rate on my easy runs. And that's kind of something that Adam and I had talked about before that we felt like we needed to kind of lock that in for Black Canyon. And we just didn't do that in training as much. Mindset, like I came into this race going for the win. Black Canyon, I wanted to like I don't know finish top 20 with a certain time, and if you're gonna compete, like you gotta have bigger goals than that. That's not really competitive, in my opinion. So I needed to, like even if I didn't necessarily fully believe it, I needed to be shooting for the win at Black Canyon just so that I got the most out of myself, and that I think I was just afraid of like maybe blowing up there and not putting up a result at all. Um, so I think I took it a little bit more conservatively than I should have. So I changed that at uh, at Antelope, and I know that there's a little less on the line at Antelope, but and less competition, so it was a little easier for me to just to tell myself that I was going to go out and try to blow up. But it was something I needed to fix before I started to get into the speed goats and the UTMBs and the bears, where like if I'm not competing, I'm going to be off the back, and
Yeah.
like my result won't be meaningful to me if I didn't push myself to my abilities. Gear, um, I wore my tantrums vest that my guy Adam C had sent for like the first 17 miles. Chucked it off. He didn't necessarily need it for this race. It worked really well, so I'll probably use it for future races. But the aid stations were close enough that I didn't really necessarily need it. Wore my rabbit gear. Our new racing kit came the day before, which is sweet to be able to rep rabbit, and it was the lighter weight shirt than the shirt I had been training in, so felt like I had less on me, which is nice. Nutrition, I used Hyperlight liquid nutrition for I think at least the first like 3 to 4 hours, just because I wanted to make it pretty easy to get nutrition down. Didn't want to have to go to my pockets for gels, so I used my two handhelds. I ended up getting a few more soft flasks since Black Canyon as well from Hydro Pack, so they sent those, and I was able to bottle swap instead of having to refill bottles as much as I did at Black Canyon, so that saved a few minutes at least. Nutritionally, I still use my Science and Sport Beta Fuel gels alongside the liquid nutrition just to have a little bit more texture and a little bit more thickness there, and felt like it was a little bit more sustenance for me. But I think those are the biggest things I touched on in between Black Canyon and the Buffalo Run. Like just a few little tweaks, but made a huge difference in my performance, and my mindset was like the biggest thing. Like just flipping that switch, and
Yeah.
it's like almost like go kill. Like I'm just gonna like have this
Yeah.
final mindset where like I'm not gonna let off the gas, and like you're gonna have to make a move on me, and you're gonna have to get it out of me. We got one more. I know this one's from Hunter, I believe. He said training philosophy slash workouts in the build. This one I kept it pretty similar, or my coach Hayden and I kept it pretty similar to Black Canyon. We just like extended the block a little bit on the Black Canyon workout. So I do a lot of the workouts on hills and working on my efficiency uphill. This course didn't really have as much uphills, but it did help to know that I've run faster and steeper at certain efforts in the workouts. So when I came to race day, those efforts felt, I mean, it's hard for it to be easy on race day, but it felt easier than they would have. Because I knew that the grades, like mentally, I think maybe it was a placebo. Maybe it just helped mentally, knowing that I had done steeper grades at a faster pace, at about the same effort in workouts than I would need to do during the race, which was like a little less steep and a little slower. So even when I was more fatigued and it probably felt that fast, I knew like in my head, oh, I had done more than this before. Like this feels easier, like even if it didn't. Um, Training philosophy, like I had said in the previous question, I just ran a little bit my easy runs higher up in zone two. Um, Kept it still light, but a little bit quicker by like 10-15 seconds per mile, maybe 30 seconds per mile than I normally do. And the podcast is called the Ultra Ascent Podcast. And that's kind of based off of like ultra and how both Mark and I are like shooting to be like every single day we're working to be like ultra runners in our respective like ways. I think I'm more so focused on trail right now. He's more focused on like roads and trail. So like those kind of can be combined in that one bucket of ultra.
Mm-hmm.
And then ascent is like there's always going to be we're always moving forward and we're always climbing. Not only like the ranks of like the ultra world, but like becoming better than we were before, and there's always like something for us to shoot for while we're doing this. So it was a name that ChatGPT honestly scoped out for us after like 15-20 iterations that we were trying to come up with, and I think it was a good one that kind of represented like what we're doing and like the way that we're doing it. So yeah.
Well, now that brings up so you have reached this ascent as we close out this episode. What is, now that you've crested the peak,
never have crested. Never gonna crest it, dude.
what is the next? I know this is a ticket. You've gotten into Bear 100, but you've got a few other. You got May Tiger Claw, June Twisted Fork, July Speed Goat, August UTMB, and the Bear in September.
Yep.
So
loaded schedule.
Any goals that you want to put out there now that we can come back and see if you've done that?
Yeah. This one's gonna be harder to measure up, just because it's gonna be more of like I guess, I don't know. I don't even know the definition of arbitrary, so it could be less arbitrary or more arbitrary, whatever. But the next thing on the schedule is next weekend. Zach and his friend Court They invited me to run the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim.
I saw that.
So we're gonna do that next weekend on Saturday, and we're gonna try to do it fast. I know that it probably won't be fully recovered, and it probably will. I don't know if it'll negatively affect my training block, just because it might put me in a bigger hole than I should be in for Tiger Claw. But it's an adventure that I'm looking forward to, just because I kind of want to escape and not escape. I'd say switch up from the monotony of what I have been doing these past few months in this block, and kind of throw myself into a different arena. I guess in the past few months, I've been doing a lot more running fast, getting my fitness up, getting my aerobic ability up. And this one, I kind of want to take it a little bit easier for me and kind of enjoy the moment a little bit more. And like in the Grand Canyon, it's impossible not to have fun no matter what the weather is. It could be like 80, 100 degrees down in the canyon, but still is gonna be incredible. Um, so that one I just want to like have fun, and I think we're gonna shoot for like I don't know 8.5, 9 hours, which is pretty quick. Nothing close like Jim Walmsley's whatever 6 hours I think it is 5 hours something like that. So we're not shooting for any FKT there, but kind of just getting the most out of ourselves on that day to a certain extent, and I'm gonna make sure that no matter what kind of day I have or what kind of day Zach or Court or potentially our friend Mike has, like I just want to be there for them and to know that like we're doing this adventure together and enjoying it. I guess after that, my biggest goal is to support Natalie in any way I can, as best as I can at the Boston Marathon. So she's running that mid to end of April. So that'll be fun getting back out to Boston and soaking that up. We're actually staying with Dirty Murph and Luke, so that'll be fun since they live out there now. Um, and then for Tiger Claw, my goal previously was top five, and that's a goal I put out there on my race calendar schedule,
Okay.
just because I think there's an incentive from Rabbit to be top five there. But now, after winning uh, Antelope Island Buffalo Run 50 miler, I'm going there with the intention of winning, and I know that it could bring on a pretty good field. There's a potential for like they have a ton of local crushers out there that probably know the mountain much better than me, and will have that home field advantage like I did on Antelope. But I'm gonna give it my all and gonna try to win. There's potential that pros will even come out for this one, potentially. Those that are maybe established or associated with the Rabbit or want to support Ethan Newberry, who's put out a bunch of different films and has kind of supported the trail and ultra running community really well over the years. Maybe people want to come out and support his race. So I think it'll bring on a decently competitive field, and I think top five is like the lowest I want to be there. But yeah, I think it's gonna be fun being at sea level, having three significant climbs and three pretty steep descents. It's cool because it's a choose your own adventure type race. So there's three different loops that you do up this mountain to the top, three different ways to go up, and you get to choose the order in which you go. So, not sure what the racing, I guess narrative will be like, just because someone that's my competitor might choose to go a different way up than me the first time. But I guess we'll see how that goes. In the moment, it's hard to know what I'll do or what other people do until the gun goes off. So you kind of have to be ready to react and, be pushing as much as you can.
All right.
Yep.
Well, any final words on the Buffalo? I think we've said it all.
Man, I think it's satisfying to me to know that all the times I went out there and like took up all that time on my day, like driving there an hour, driving back an hour, like paid off.
Yeah.
Way. Like just knowing like I committed myself to this course, and I almost became one with the course as much as I possibly could, that it felt like I was just out there for another training run at a much faster clip. But it was cool to know that you're rewarded for what you put in. Yeah, and you will get what you deserve.
Alex Proctor, episode 16.
Out.